I know that there are different opinions on how important Epstein is. I personally think that what you'd call the normie voter, this doesn't really register with them. I think that there are very committed, small, vocal groups that believe different things about what Epstein was doing and what it means for not only U.S. politics, but global politics. I know there are people that believe that there were crimes that were committed that were not exposed when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and Ghislaine Maxwell was tried and stuff. But I'm interested to hear, what you guys think about what it means for MAGA and also what it means for the future of not just the Republican Party, but also for the U.S. as a whole. So why don't you start off, Kurtz?
So I think there's probably going to be a kind of a delayed effect with this. I think a lot of voters and people in MAGA are sort of hanging back and waiting to see if there's any there here after all, or if this is just another, fake news story, as Trump has been trying to sell it. But I think that Trump seems to me, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, he's always a little unhinged or he's always kind of off message or what have you. But he seems like he has really been flailing to me on this in a way that I've not seen since COVID. Mm. And to me, there's just a qualitative difference. That Truth Social post from several days ago when he was calling those of us who are interested in this subject weaklings, I thought it was just astounding. And again, even for him, off message, unhinged, and he gives the impression that he's hiding something. I'm not saying that he is, but he gives the impression that he is, or at the very least that he's very uncomfortable with this line of thought for some reason. So what I think is that right now there are a lot of people, a lot of Trump supporters, MAGA people who are holding back and are sort of reserving judgment. But I do think that over time, there's going to be a cost to this if it is not resolved in some way. If people don't get answers, if there are not files released, and by the way, the release, if anything is released by Pam Bondi, it can't just be some little trickle of something. I know Trump said, okay, we're going to release the grand jury. He wants the grand jury testimony released. Okay, which grand jury testimony? What is the extent of that? He said, well, he kind of qualified it, right? He said he wants it released if it's what, credible or okay, well, that sounds like lawyers speak to me in a way. So I know that there have been polls showing that Trump's support has not eroded, that in fact his support has gone up. But I think that there's probably a delayed effect with this. I think that this could be a kind of an Achilles heel situation for him, but we will see.
I agree. I think this is the first time we've seen him lose his confidence and instinct. And I think he's surrounded by people who are handling him.
So that I want to push back on that. I'm gonna end up playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, perfect.
But I think that Trump's response is frustration, or what would you say to people that say Trump's response is frustration because outside of the Epstein debacle, which they handled, I agree, they handled poorly, and it makes sense that people are questioning it. But outside of that, Donald Trump has had success after success after success after success. And currently, all people want to talk about is the Epstein stuff. And it's gotten to the point where it's not just people that are in the weeds politically. It's people that are that you'd consider normies. And as an example, so there's this show called Two-Way, which is Mark Halperin and Sean Spicer's on it. Dan Tureen is on it. They're very normie politicos. You see it on the New York Times. Their podcast daily, they have to talk about it. And these are outlets that generally would avoid this topic, but because there's so much heat around it, they're forced to talk about it. And again, Trump has had so many things that have gone so well for him since the election. What would you say to people that say, well, look, if you were the president and had done all these things and you had all this great stuff with immigration, having so much success, and you just got the Doge cuts actually codified, and you got the big bill, and you got all this, what would you say to people that say he's just frustrated with the fact that people are focusing on this Epstein thing as opposed to all of his success?
He might be just frustrated. It may be that there's no there in terms of he's not hiding some dark history or anything with this, but he needs to wake the F up, as the family show. He needs to wake the F up, because human nature is such that people like tabloid stuff. They like red meat. There's something about this Epstein thing and that is captivating to people. And so, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of like people bemoaning tabloid culture. Oh, why do people care so much about Blake Lively and this kind of thing when there's so many more important, serious issues? Well,
I think
welcome to the modern age.
I think it's way beyond all that, though, and all the things people care about, which we should care about: immigration, economy, all those things. The Epstein story and stories like Epstein is the nucleus of all those problems. Like, these are people who are in our government, in our country, who are beholden to people like this, and this is not like a unique thing to Epstein. This is, and real quick, Trump ran on literally obliterating the deep state. Agenda 47 was to destroy the deep state. The deep state is an invisible network of DOJ, CIA, FBI, Mossad, Five Eyes, you name it. That's all the people. It's not just one boogeyman. It's all over the world. And Epstein is a symbol of that deep state. We watched as a world them shoot at Trump's head. Like, we're watching JFK level conspiracies play out in real time. The Epstein thing, like I said, is a nucleus of all of these issues, because we are now, as taxpayers, funding our own destruction over the years. Like, why are our politicians making certain decisions that are completely against our best interests?
So your take is that when people are talking about the deep state, they're talking about things like espionage and intelligence agencies, as opposed to the deep state being the entrenched bureaucracy. Because the reason I ask is, it's my opinion that the deep state is less about intelligence assets and more about people that work in government, and they want to make sure that they can continue making their car payments. They're unelected. They have jobs, GS-15s or whatever. They want to continue making their payments on their mortgage. They want to continue making their payments on their cars. They want to make sure that their kids can still go to school. And so that entrenched bureaucracy is interested in keeping the status quo, not because there's some massive conspiracy based in international espionage, but it's people that are like, no, I just want to make sure that my pension is taken care of, and I want to make sure that we can keep doing what we're doing. So that way I keep my lifestyle.
But those people want a status quo, and the status quo is actually a weaponized government against the American people for decades, at least a century. And they haven't been working in our best interest. Those people who are unelected bureaucrats want to maintain power and the quote unquote status quo for people who believe in the normal world. But the world's not normal. It's been weaponized against us for ages. And Epstein is just one facet of that.
And even people who may not have a conspiratorial worldview, or who may not be as interested in the things that you're talking about right now, most people still have a fear or a suspicion that there are shadowy things going on in our government, and even non-conspiratorial people. And this Epstein thing, look, most people draw a hard line at abuse of children. And of course, I know that there's, in some of these discussions, there's some gray area about, okay, we're really talking about children? Are we talking about young women? There's and there have been claims that for the most part, Epstein actually was into just barely of age women.
Either way, it's sick.
People don't make those distinctions. People have put Epstein firmly in the category of a sicko, and so
like little girls with braces.
Exactly. And I saw that private investigator talked about that as soon he investigated Epstein, and as soon as the girls were out of braces and he wasn't really interested in them. I don't know the truth totally who does about Epstein, but the problem is that there's so many people on Trump's side in his administration, even Donald Trump Jr., as you know, who up until just J.D. Vance, up until just recently, were touting this as a significant issue that needed to be exposed. And now all of a sudden there's nothing to see here, guys.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.